Today, we're going to take aim at content creators and hobby businesses in general because I really want to understand when enough is going to be enough with some of these scams, with some of these hanky-panky that we're seeing within this industry, and when people are going to start holding these businesses and these individuals a lot more accountable than what they actually are. Because we've seen in recent weeks with this whole card porn situation that there could be a lot more accountability being shown that is not being shown, and that is severely impacting on this hobby's ability, number one, to find out more information on this alleged scumbag, but number two, move forward and actually make a better process, make a better hobby all in all for us as, collectors, investors, flippers, whatever the heck you define yourself as. We're in a position right now where we can see a huge uplift, see a huge improvement to how things are being handled, and we're not going to see that because people aren't doing what, you'd expect of them. And it's a very interesting one. There's a lot of things I want to talk to on this, so please just bear with me as we do go through it all. But this thought process has obviously been in the back of my head for a long time, and when this card porn stuff first popped off, it did kick off in my head again. But we had Patrick Ryan jump on a live stream on IG, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with EFA's pitch. And you can see a story on this detailing what the summary of this conversation was. And essentially what they talked to was the lack of conversation from very influential people in this, space, in this hobby, whether it be, collectors, content creators, businesses. There's really not much conversation going on, and that's, directly impacting on us. Number one, finding out more information on this alleged scam, but number two, being able to improve the hobby long term. And the general gist, as you got P. Ryan explaining here on screen, is that the vast majority of hobby content on IG and YouTube is not journalism, despite it pretending to be at times, right? Despite it trying to portray itself at times. It basically goes on to then say too much of what hobbyists consume is really just sponsored content, and the creators are ultimately beholden to what their advertisers do or don't want them to talk about. And that's a very important thing, and it's something we've obviously talked to many times on this channel. So if you haven't seen this live, check it out. It goes for about 20 minutes. It's really, really good because they jump on a number of things, but too many people are sort of seeing this whole card porn situation like they have with many others, and they've said, well, Dan the Card Man has talked about it, AIH Sports has talked about it, Sports Card Radio have, well, why do I need to? And that's not a really good position to take, because we need more and more people to talk about this stuff so we can actually get some tangible output out of it, right? If you've got somebody like me talking about it and Raul from AIH Sports, and we're actually getting some insights and some information coming to light, just imagine what you'd be able to see if somebody like a Jeff Wilson, as an example, put out more regular content talking about this exact same situation to try and get more information come to light. I asked a random question 3 or 4 days ago, and that resulted in my last video being made, which now appears to be a second fake box from the same account that successfully scammed someone here in Sydney, right? That's a big thing to happen. Now imagine what could come out if a bigger account was doing that, or a more influential account was doing that. Not to mention what we could be getting out of these businesses that are allegedly tied to this, card porn individual. A lot of these businesses could be implicated, and we don't really know for sure because nobody's really saying anything. But the fact that you've got nobody asking the tough questions of them that can actually get a response from them is a little bit scary for me, because these businesses are maybe implicated, maybe they're not, but let's say they are, okay? And no questions get asked of them, and the hobby forgets about this, and then 6-12 months down the line, everybody forgets, everybody moves on. But then the same thing is sort of primed to happen again, right? Because they've not fixed anything. We need these businesses and these individuals to be held a lot more accountable. And it's just really disappointing to see the lack of conversation around it. And it's not something that's, super new. It's sort of always happened. People talking on the behalf of their sponsors, or talking out the side of their mouth because they're concerned about losing a sponsor. But that's not good enough. That's not a good enough excuse. I've talked to this before as well. Just because you have a sponsor doesn't mean you have to become a company man, right? You yourself have values that you need to try and maintain, especially if you want to convey some kind of truth or, respect to your viewers. If you care about the people that are watching your content, you need to be doing whatever you can to protect them. And it doesn't matter if the sponsor's paying you or not. If you're not happy with what that business has done or what that business is telling you to do, you don't have to talk on their behalf. You can push back against them, right? Content creators are the ones that have the power in this space, right? The people are watching you. The people are watching you. It doesn't matter about the hobby business on the side that you're getting money from. Like, who cares about them? People are watching you. You have the power. And people forget that in this space. And if people want to talk on behalf of their sponsors, that's fine. But I think, a big problem here is so many people in this industry have been given a platform that maybe, I don't want to say don't deserve, that's a poor choice of words, but maybe they don't know any better. And people that are watching don't understand this, right? You've either got people that are so reliant on this sponsor income that they can't afford to go against them, which means you're getting, misinformation as a viewer, or they don't really have a whole lot of life experience. They're young individuals and they're beginning a platform and they rely so heavily on the income that they, again, don't know any better. So they're sort of presenting stuff to you. They're vouching for people and presenting it to you in a video, not understanding the impacts that their words have on people. And I've talked to that before as well when it came to Mojo Sports with the whole Mark's Cards thing. How many of his customers do you think went ahead and used Mark's Cards after that video where he spooked them and said, this is how you run a business. These guys are family. I love it. This is what it's all about. How many people do you think, listened to him off the back of that and then got caught out, right? And maybe in his mind, he thought he was doing the right thing. But in reality, you got to protect your viewers. And a lot of people seem to also forget that in this space. And I just think it's a really disappointing thing. And it's not overly surprising that it's only come to light with this whole card porn situation. If we just look at, what's happened over the last few months that I've talked to on my channel, I'm a little bit concerned about, what these businesses in this industry are actually trying to do to make things better for us, because we've talked to the card porn situation. This is just a small list that I quickly put together, right? We had the 4 sets of duplicate one-of-one cards for NFL from, I think it was 2018. They've now been confirmed to be patch swapped and have gone through both BGS and PSA and have been graded. They've been missed the fact that they were patch swaps. They've also been sold on PWCC's platform. You've had the altered and fake Steph Curry rookie cards, the base rookies from Topps that have gone to PSA, that have gone to BGS that are fake and have basically been missed and then also been sold on auction house platforms. You've had Topps, right, with these backdoored cards that have been backdoored with fake orders put on them that have also now been graded and sold on various auction sites. No one talking about that. Topps not talking about it. No content creators are really talking about that, aside from a select few. You've had the whole Panini redemption scam, which is a freaking big one that, again, not many people have talked to. You've got Panini with active Cristiano Ronaldo impeccable redemptions. They're still active. They've not expired yet. People can still hit that redemption in a product, yet Panini have already handed out those cards as redemption replacements to other people. That's insane to me. But again, nobody's talked about it. So how are these businesses going to be held accountable? My channel's small. It doesn't really have the impact that these bigger accounts have. You've had that fake soccer syndicate that's allegedly tied to the Mexican cartel that has, BGS cards that continually get sold on PWCC's platform. And then, surprise, surprise, PWCC come out in a comment on Instagram that I talked about in a recent video where they say, we know that BGS have a problem spotting these. We know the community know they're fake. We know they're fake, but there's not much we can do, is essentially what they say. Well, again, what you can do is not put BGS soccer cards on your freaking platform if you know that BGS have a problem. Yet again, that statement gets made by PWCC from one of their fraud analysts or whatever they refer to themselves as on Instagram, and nobody talks about it. Nobody holds PWCC accountable. What the heck is going on? You then had the whole rig break situation and countless other crap that I've talked to over the last couple of months, and that's just the last couple of months alone. Yet no big accounts talk to this sort of stuff, which means these businesses don't get held accountable, which means these processes don't get improved, which means we as customers get screwed over in the long run, right? If you want to be in the hobby long term, who cares if this card porn situation right now is negative? The more you talk about it, the more people you can hold accountable, the more businesses you can hold accountable, which then in return creates more value for us long term, because businesses that were so quick to allow this guy to infiltrate their business, allegedly, right, and take advantage, again, allegedly, might think back and say, well, because we've got so much people, or we've got so many people pushing back on us and it's been made this big deal that it should rightfully be made out to be, we need to fix things. So how can we fix them? But again, if nobody's talking about it, nobody's putting pressure on them, they're not going to fix shit, right? And they might say they will, but they need to be pressured. They need to be held accountable. And, I constantly get called out for being negative, right? This content is not negative. I'm making it for multiple years now, and I do it because I care about cards. I care about this hobby. I care about uplifting people's knowledge. I care about making this hobby as good as it can be long term. And if that just means me making people more aware by being across, certain scams or some dodgy behavior happening, then that's all I need to do. But in the long run, if you can get a business to say, well, hang on a minute, this thing that we're doing here is not good, we need to be doing better, that's a huge win. And like I said, it's not negative. And the people that look at it through that lens because they're too scared to talk about it themselves, because they're too scared to lose a sponsor, then honestly, pull your finger out of your ass, because you need to be doing a heck of a lot better. And, I don't wish ill will upon anyone, right? But if you're a content creator that's sort of with that mindset, it's pretty clear that your viewers are already catching on to this sort of stuff. We've seen it happen with a few accounts that blew up during the boom, and they got big, followings that have, large subscriber counts now that really struggle for views. And it's because people have caught on to the fact that maybe they just make videos for the sake of sponsorship content, or they're not going to talk about certain topics because a sponsor clearly asked them not to. There's all this sort of stuff that happens, and it's like, well, those are the people you should be pressuring, right? For everyone that pressures me for being negative, pressure these people for not talking about this sort of stuff as often, right? We talked a little bit at the start around the whole card pawn situation and how, if these big accounts, these more influential accounts were asking these tough questions directly of the businesses, or even putting information out there to you as a viewer to help them find out more, imagine what they could shake loose. Imagine what they could find. Like I said earlier, I asked a random question to somebody about a box of 86 Fleer. That box of 86 Fleer ended up being fine, right? Ended up being cleared. Yet they then said to me, well, actually, this guy didn't try to scam me with a different box. It was now confirmed to be the same scammer as this, confirmed scam here in Sydney, which is absolutely wild. And there's obviously more information to come from there, but that's crazy. And can you imagine if a bigger account was asking those questions? We see bounties all the time in this hobby about, if you get this good card, we're going to give you 200 grand. Why have we not seen a bounty from some influential person in this hobby saying, we're going to give you 10 grand if you can give us more information on a confirmed scam from this alleged card pawn scammer, right? That would be awesome to see, but nobody's doing it. Why is nobody going to Golden? Why is nobody going to PSA? Why is nobody going to BGS other than Darren Ravel for, use in an article and saying, what the heck is going on, guys? You look at Sports Card Investor, he's got a direct line of communication with so many influential people in this industry. He has a really good opportunity here to ask those questions, and he's not done that yet. And I don't know if he's going to. And is that because he has, sponsors he's trying to protect, or is it just because he doesn't want that kind of stuff on his channel? But again, both of those things might be valid, but if it's the latter, and he doesn't want that sort of stuff on his channel, if he cares about the hobby long term, these are the kinds of conversations he needs to be having, because yes, like I said earlier, it might have immediate short-term impact on this hobby, right? And the values of sales and all this sort of stuff within this hobby. But if we can address it now, squash it, get some answers, long term, it's going to be better because these businesses will say, okay, this process was clearly broken. You held us accountable. This is how we fixed it. Or we've made this mistake with these cards getting backdoored. This is how we're going to fix it. Or we keep creating these fake cards. This is how we're going to fix it, right? If it's only me asking these questions and other people with similar, sizes of mine asking these questions, we're never going to see any change. And we need to see this change. And the key question here is, when is enough going to be enough? When is the straw going to break the camel's back? Because I think we're at a point now where if this card pawn situation is not the one to do that, I don't think we're ever going to see one that is, because this is probably the most, if true, systemic and pervasive piece of fraud that this hobby will literally ever see. And this already factors in things like the alleged Mexican cartel. It also factors in the stuff with shield bidding and the whole Mastro trimming situation. This guy looked like he had his fingers in so many of these businesses, has done so much dodgy stuff. This could be the worst thing that ever happens to this industry in terms of a fraud and manipulative perspective. And if we're not seeing people held accountable off the back of this, if we're not seeing people ask the tough questions off the back of this that actually have the influence to make a tangible change to this hobby, we are literally never going to see it. And that should scare a heck of a lot of you, especially those of you that, have been in cards your whole life like me, because, things might be pretty scary moving forward. And I don't want to say that to try and doom and gloom people, but like I said at the very start, if you're not asking this question, these businesses don't change, the same thing could happen in 12 months' time. The same thing could happen in a few years' time. And if you want this hobby to be successful long term, and you want this hobby to be an investment piece, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, but if you want these things to be treated like that, you need to have some form of regulation and control around this sort of stuff. And you need to be treating this stuff with the respect that it deserves. And by people staying silent, you're not doing that. So this was a long rant. I hope you guys appreciated it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.